Well, hello everyone. It is, exactly JJ. It's another Friday with Brent. It's time to talk anime and manga and all such things. Um, it's a new Friday. We're going to have fun with stuff, including a new wall scroll. Indeed. Got a few new wall scrolls gracing the secret library laboratory here. Thank you. Yes, this week was better than last week. Things are a little smoother at work, a little calmer. We're heading into a project week, so we're gonna have a. Hopefully, things are gonna be a little more straightforward on all this stuff. We'll we'll see. Thank you. Thank you, Solid Combi. Glad to hear you're enjoying the Mecha as Modern Mythology videos. That is a good thing. I'm just realizing there's a slight weirdness with the chat. That's interesting. Can I do something about that? No. Hold on. Stand by. Stand by. Something a little weird with chat. Let me just pull something up real quick. See what's going on with that. There's the height. The size of it is just kind of funky. And there's just so much stuff in here to figure out. Yeah, I don't know that there's any way of fixing that. But yeah, it's not showing the bottom couple lines of chat for some reason. And I don't know why. Weird. Anyway. I know the delay, but it's not showing at all the most recent two chat messages, no matter how long it takes. So that's very strange. In fact, it's not showing that at all. Is there some disconnect, perhaps? Some strange disconnect, some strange thing that is not working the way it should? That's inconceivable. YouTube always works correctly. Try refreshing. Nope. Weird. Okay, well, chat's not working the way we expected to, but that's okay. Anyway, it's Friday. It has been a week of anime. For some strange reason, I've actually been keeping up with several of the anime this season still. So I've been watching Ascendance of a Bookworm, High School Prodigies, and I thought I told you to keep my abilities average. Enjoying all of those. Just great fun. Nothing too mind-blowing in any of them. Although Ascendance of a Bookworm had an interesting twist in episode 4. I won't tell you anything. I won't reveal it. But something happens that's kind of like, oh, they're going in a somewhat different direction than I thought, which is quite interesting. So I'm hoping to see how that will work. Yeah, the resolution of chat was really weird. So maybe it's the chat solution I'm using for the bottom thing. Who knows? I have not been keeping up with the wrestler anime. Only managed those 3. I actually had to drive down about 2.5 hours away from here for a work thing on Thursday. So basically drove down Wednesday night, came back Thursday night. And that kind of cut into my anime time. I'm doing all right, thank you, Akko. Definitely don't need the assistance of certain beverages tonight as much as I did last time. So that's good. Have you guys been watching the wrestler anime? I'm curious how that's going. Look a bit tired. Not too surprising. This is a slightly new lighting environment too, so that might be changing things around a little bit. But I'm. Oh, I'm fine. Not tired at all. So that's good. So yeah, unfortunately, it was a little difficult. I forgot to add some of the anime I wanted to watch to my Funimation queue this week, and so I would go on Funimation. I was like, oh, there's nothing to watch. But yeah, I did get a chance to finish up Dumbbell. I don't know if I mentioned that last week. Hitage's fun so far. Cool. Hey, Game Escape. Good to see you. Yeah, there are some shows I do not want to wait new episodes on, but these are so light and fluffy. I don't really, you know. I want to know what happens next, but I'm not like, ooh, like I have to. I'll die if I don't find out what happens next. Like if I stop here with, I thought I told you to make my abilities average in the next life, I would be fine with that. I would not, I can live the rest of my life without knowing how that plot ends. Because it doesn't really matter. Maybe they'll change that. I don't know. But it's cool. It's fun to see that. Otherwise, I've got a whole stack of DVDs to get through at some point. But this weekend's going to be my Halloween party, which should have an attendance of 2. Actually 4. My parents and their dogs. It just did not work out this time around with attendance. I didn't really invite folks until like a week before, and so a lot of folks had other things to do, family commitments, stuff like that. So it didn't really work out. Null isn't grabbing you. Yeah, the first episode of Null was cute. So that might be one of those things where you wait until it all comes out and then watch it in chunks. A few episodes of Null here and there would be fine. But I definitely, there's a good case of a show that I don't feel the need to keep up with week by week, fortunately. A lot of comedies this time around. Some drama, but a lot of just fun, light stuff. Halloween's a big deal around this house. A lot of decorations. Yes, this would have been my 12th annual Halloween party, if I'm counting correctly. I had to take last year off. But yeah, every year, Halloween party, the Saturday before Halloween. And usually have 5, 10. Actually, no. Yeah. Actually, more like 8 or 10 people every year. Cycling around as jobs shift and so forth. But that's fun. That is true, JJ. Halloween is coming, or AUSA is coming up. So I am not horrified at the idea of a quieter weekend. So I'll make some stuff. The other part of that Halloween tradition is I always make all the food for that. So I'll have some candy scattered around, but all the food is either like a ham, right, where I'll at least cook that or reheat it, or I'll cheese whatever. But yeah, it's everything else. I'll do corn muffins and apple pies and pumpkin pies and so forth. Akko, you might want to Google the history of Halloween before you claim that it's a retail holiday. Halloween is older than retail by a good few centuries. But anyway, so yeah, it's a lot of fun. A few folks dress up. It's not really a big dress up party though. It's just getting together to chat, stuff like that. In what way is it not relevant? I'm not aware the Druids sold things. No, I don't think there was any monetary things around around Druid engagements, as far as I know. Yeah, unfortunately, one or two of the attendees are sort of camera shy for like work reasons. For like the jobs they have, they don't really want to be caught on camera. So, kind of, I want to respect that. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but that is an issue. Gotta be sensitive. It's one of the reasons I do want to at some point stream a D&D game. I just need to find a group that's willing to do that and where we can have everything, have cameras and so forth and so on. But yeah, I don't think Druids did any buying and selling of any particular reason. But yeah, Halloween's not really even a druidic thing. It's more a superstition of the people. It's more a folk tradition of wandering around. The poor going for alms from house to house, and then building from that to kids going from house to house, pretending to be the poor, asking for treats, and performing tricks if not. So Definitely an old thing. Anyway, we're trying to cover turnip. Good for you. Yes, absolutely. Way back in the early days of the internet, early days of the web, there was a website, Encyclopedia Mythica. Is that still around? It can't be. Encyclopedia Mythica. Pantheon.org. Wow. Hold on. This is an unlikely. So if you Google Encyclopedia Mythica, this is a site of mythology that was user curated, so you could register and enter in mythological information there. And I wrote a fair chunk. Not Norse. Let's try Americas. Native American. This is weird. Europe is Greek, Latvian, Norse, and Roman. What about, like, Britain? Bizarre. But I wrote a fair chunk of the article on Halloween, which is really weird. How that works. Pantheon.org. That is exactly it. But it looks like that is long since gone. Actually, maybe folklore. I wonder. Search. Oh, there it is. British folklore. H. Hobany. Doesn't look like it. It looks like it's gone. They've killed the Halloween article, which I would assume is part of British folklore. General folklore, maybe? Nope. Oh well. Got scrubbed, as so many things in the internet does get scrubbed at some point. So sad. Oops. All right. Maybe Irish. That's a good point. Maybe. I don't see an Irish. Is there an Irish section on there? I didn't see one. So folklore. Nope. Arthurian legend, British folklore, and general folklore. Not a lot of folklores here. Not part of Oceania. So yeah, this is very thin. And kind of weirdly organized. Yeah, they must have restructured and rebuilt a whole bunch of stuff. Ooh, well. Let's show that week. You talk about anime, they're good for Halloween. I did not. I think we're going to do that tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about good scary anime. Good horror anime. I definitely have some ideas. There's not a lot of like pure Halloween stuff in anime, surprisingly enough. That holiday has not caught on in Japan. But there's definitely some creepy stuff out there. But y'all hear that? Sounds like the news. I just realized something. I always have this problem with the news that the camera gets all fuzzy, and I just realized that I forget to lock off the autofocus. So the camera starts like focusing back here, and it can never like actually see me during the news. So hopefully this will resolve that. We'll find out in just a few minutes. And yes, we'll definitely do anime for Halloween. But first, a lot of new anime announcements this week, which is really cool. Welcome back to the Anime and Manga News for the week ending October 25th, 2019. The majority of this week's news consists of new anime announcements. There's a little something for everyone in the lineup. So buckle in, everybody, and prepare for some very long anime titles. We'll start the announcements off with the light novel adaptations. First up, it was announced at the Fantasia Bunko 2019 Thanksgiving event that a television anime is coming for the light novel series Our Last Crusade or The Rise of a New World. The novels began publication in 2017, and a manga adaptation started in 2018. Both are already published in English by Yen Press. The novels take place in two kingdoms locked in a great war: the scientifically advanced Empire and Nebulous, the realm of magical girls. Yeah, in the story, the strongest knight of the Empire meets the princess of the magical realm. Quote, though they are sworn enemies, the knight is taken by her beauty and dignity, and the princess is moved by his strength and way of life. Will the fighting between them ever be allowed to end? End quote. Hint, probably. Last week's GA Fest 2019 event announced anime adaptations of 3 of their light novel series. First up, the television anime of I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 Years and Maxed Out My Level light novels. Yes, that is the title. Let's just hope they don't ever have a crossover event with That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Look out, Rimuru! The novels launched in 2016 and follow Azusa, who lived a short and difficult life as an overworked office employee. After dying from overworking, literally, she finds herself reborn as an immortal, unaging witch and vows to live her life as peaceful and stress-free as possible. Which, to be fair, sounds like exactly what a lot of us would probably pick. However, after centuries of making a living killing the easy target slimes, she has become incredibly powerful, so keeping her low-key lifestyle might become a little more difficult. Looks cute. The novels also inspired a manga adaptation and a spin-off novel, as well as a series of drama CDs. The voice actors in the drama CDs will be reprising their roles for the anime series, as well, as is pretty typical and good to hear. The second novel adaptation revealed at GA Fest is Suppose a Kid from the Last Dungeon Boonies Moved to a Starter Town. This novel series and its manga adaptation began in 2017, though Yen Press will only begin shipping the first novel in English this month. Our hero in this story is Lloyd, a novice adventurer who dreams of going to the capital and finding his true strength. So far, so normal. His neighbors have always considered him weak, but his hometown is actually located next to one of the most dangerous dungeons in the world. So when Lloyd gets to the capital, which serves as the starter town for adventures, he finds that he's a lot more powerful than he realized. Excuse me. The anime will be directed by Migmi at Leiden Films, with art direction by Masakatsu Miyake and character design by Makoto Ino. Deko Akao will be writing the script. Last of the GA light novels to be made into anime will be Wandering Witch, The Journey of Elena. This series tells you the story of, you guessed it, Elena, a witch who sets off on a journey across the world. Yen Press, who will publish these novels in English as well, describes the story, quote, along the way, she would meet all kinds of people, from a country full of witches to a giant in love with his own muscles. But with each meeting, Elena would become a small part of their story, and her own world would get a little bit bigger, end quote. The first novel began publication in 2016, and a manga adaptation has been running since 2018. Toshiyuki Kuboka will be directing the anime at C2C, with Kazuyuki Furuyasu writing the scripts and Takeshi Oda adapting the original character design. So, looking forward to that. Curious to see how that's going to go. Maybe a Kino's Journey kind of vibe? Who knows? This next anime announcement will be kept a bit vague for the sake of family friendliness. Shueisha announced earlier today that an anime adaptation of Ryoma Kitada's Dokyu Hentai H-Cross Eros manga is in the works. The manga premiered in Shueisha's Jump SQ magazine in April of 2017. Its 7th compiled volume will be published next month. The general PG-rated version of this story is that an unknown alien threat has begun robbing people of their will to live through certain energies. High school boy Reto Enjo joins the hero organization H-Cross Eros and fights to save the Earth alongside, surprise, surprise, 4 beautiful high school girls. Yeah. Next is something for those who are more interested in beautiful high school boys. Fuji TV's Blue Lynx label, which produces boys love anime, will be producing a theatrical anime adaptation of Kannaki's Umibe no Étranger manga. Umibe no Étranger, Stranger on the Beach. centers around Mio, who lost his parents at an early age. In the past, he met aspiring novelist Shun, who lived near him on a remote island in Okinawa, after Shun noticed Mio sitting alone by the beach. Eventually, Mio had to leave the island, but returns 3 years later to face his feelings. Yeah. Akio Ohashi will be directing the film at Studio Hibari, with Ki, who was an animator before becoming a manga artist, supervising the production and drawing the character designs. The film's set to open in Japan in the summer of 2020. And finally, our last anime series announcement of the week. A new promotional video for Gakukuze's Uramichi Onisan comedy manga revealed that the series will be getting an anime adaptation. Yay! The manga follows the life of 31-year-old Uramichi Omota, who has 2 different sides to his personality. On the educational program Maman to Together, where he leads physical exercises, he is fresh and upbeat, while in his daily life, he's really a bit emotionally unstable. The manga touches on some of the less than sunny parts of young adult life, apparently. It's a good thing the series is a comedy, or some of those parts of young adult life might hit too close to home. Besides, after all, it's better to laugh about tough stuff than cry, right? The manga debuted digitally in 2017 and will receive its 4th published compilation volume at the end of this month. It won the web manga category of Nico Nico's 3rd Tsugi Nikuru Manga Awards, and has placed in several other manga awards and favorites lists since it began. Good luck. This week also brings a couple updates about the live-action film adaptations currently in production over in Hollywood. IGN uploaded a video excerpt of an interview with Taika Waititi touching on the live-action Akira manga film. Apparently, though it has been delayed indefinitely since July, they do still plan to make the film eventually. Waititi explained in the interview that the filming schedule kept getting pushed back because of the staff, quote, working really hard on the script, end quote, meaning no one could agree, until it began to overlap with the production of Thor 4. Waititi explained that, quote, now we've had to take Akira and shift it around to the tail end of Thor and move it down a couple of years, end quote. So, don't be expecting this movie anytime soon, but there still is hope for live-action Akira on the distant horizon. The production of Netflix's live-action Cowboy Bebop series has been put on hold due to lead actor John Cho suffering a knee injury on set in New Zealand. Cho will return to America for surgery and rehabilitation, and production is planned to resume in late spring or early summer of next year. The website Deadline reported that the injury took place a few episodes into the 10-episode production on the last take of a, quote, routine and well-rehearsed scene, end quote. In other words, wasn't something crazy going on. Hopefully Mr. Cho will make a swift recovery, and production can continue on the series with no more incidents. Production and management company Egg Firm, and Studio White Fox have announced their investment in the new anime studio, Studio Bind. The studio was founded in November of last year and is based in Tokyo's Suginami Ward. Its representative director is Toshiya Otomo, who's worked on production advancement on anime such as Durarara and Bodacious Space Pirates. Studio Bind's first major project will be the anime adaptation of light novel series Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, which will premiere in 2020, and that manga is also available in English. This last news story is included in no small part because of the amazing key image. Gundam Seed has launched a collaboration with the Japan Racing Association leading up to the Tenno Sho horse race on October 27th. You heard me right. The main feature of the collab is the giveaway of a unique racehorse-themed gunpla. Contestants can follow the prompts on the event's special website to receive an entry ticket for the draw. Tickets must then be posted on Twitter before the race on October 27th. Then 3 people whose bracket matches the winning results of the race will win an HGCE 1144th Kitasan Black Original Strike Freedom Gundam. Kitasan Black is a Japanese thoroughbred racehorse who won JRA's Japanese Horse of the Year award in both 2016 and 2017. So yes, it is a gunpla based on a real horse. And in case you haven't gotten enough Gundams and horses yet, there's also a promotional video for the event, which plays out just like one of the openings for Gundam Seed, complete with TM Revolution singing the original Gundam Seed opening song, and character images superimposed over action sequences. Only here, the action sequences are real life horse races rather than giant robot fights. I have no words. Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. Um, and like they remade the original opening to Gundam Seed and all of the superimposed and all that shots, and which are pretty iconic. I mean, I've seen other mecha series do opening sequences that reference the imagery in that opening, but there's just live action horse races in the background. Really bizarre. Um, yeah, so lots of anime coming up. I actually have. Was that? Do I have that in physical? Yeah, I do. So that new manga or that new anime coming in 2020 from Studio. What was it? Studio Bind. That's it. Is this Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation? So basically, sad sack guy ends up reincarnating in a fantasy world as a baby, and decides that this time, and like when I say sad sack, like he's a pretty unpleasant guy in a lot of ways. Doesn't really do anything. Doesn't really let anything. Doesn't really, I am tired. No job, no prospects, just kind of sits at home leeching off people. And he reincarnates and decides to be a good person this time around deliberately. And so I'm very curious about that. And so I read the first volume of the manga. It's rather ecchi at times because like he's allowed to be around other children as a child quite reasonably, but he is he has the mind of a like 30-year-old male, and so there are moments with some of the girls around where he finds ways of perving on them, and not like children, but various folks, and there are and he definitely has a I mean, there are moments where he's a little creepy, but they play it for laughs, and so it's just kind of odd in that way. But I do like the protagonist. I think it's a neat thing, and I'm really hoping that there's they tone that down a little bit for the anime series, because here's the thing. Let's be honest here. I've seen plenty of ecchi stuff. I've seen plenty of very ecchi stuff. But you can certainly insert that stuff and work it into a work of anime, or it can be dumped on you in a way that feels out of place, right? It can be plot, panty shot, plot. And it's just like, that doesn't really fit. And it doesn't really fit Mushoku Tensei. So I'm hoping that they figure out a way of doing honor to the concept of the source material. I don't know, but it just feels a little weird. And a good example of where hopefully when they go to adapt this, they'll realize, okay, we can adapt this, right? We can find the right ways of putting this in that fills. People were calling isekai old years ago, so it is clearly not old. I am totally fine with the isekai out there. Isekai is the thing. All right. So we want to talk about anime for Halloween, horror anime. Um, will the Japanese get tired eventually? Yes. Well, maybe. Who knows? You know, did they get tired of Mecha? No. Mecha did ease out, right? There's much less Mecha now than there used to be. Um, but it's never gone away, right? There's always Mecha being made. But I'm seeing no signs of it slowing down. I'm seeing signs of it hitting a peak, put it that way, but I don't see it slowing down. It's also possible that Isekai is going to be incorporated into anime, going to be integrated in. So it's just going to be, here's let's, a lot more anime will be Isekai, but it will be, you'll have sci-fi Isekai, you'll have romance Isekai, action Isekai, noir Isekai. Who knows? Vampire Princess Miyu, definitely Halloweeny. You are absolutely right there, Game Escape. That's a great recommendation. Himeka Forever, totally. The yeah, but I mean, I mean, Moe took over, right? Moe hasn't gone away, really. Um, in terms of anime for Halloween, I'm going to be looking for creepy horror anime that is that makes you uncomfortable, right? Anime that scares you, and for that, yeah, Doom Megalopolis is certainly one. um, I would also go for Lily Cat, which is an anime from I believe the early '80s, maybe mid to late '80s, so '80s. It's basically the movie Alien, just in anime form. It's pretty much exactly what it is. They basically, you know, just remade Alien and hope nobody would notice. That's a good scary one. Definitely not ghost stories. I wouldn't even count Happy Sugar Life. I think Happy Sugar Life isn't really what I've seen of Happy Sugar Life isn't really scary. Um, it's just kind of it's 4chan scary, right? It's here's a horrific concept and let's just throw everything at you all at once. Um, Yamishibai, I have not had a good track record no, Yamishibai is very hit or miss. There are absolutely some very scary stories in Yamishibai, but yeah. Um, oh, I disagree there, Akko. I think there's plenty of scary anime. Boogie Pop Phantom, you creeped me out and like legitimately scared me. There are definitely scary moments in Boogie Pop Phantom. Um, but speaking also of generally just dark and scary stuff, you would not go poorly with an anime we've talked about before on here, Demon City Shinjuku, which is kind of over the top, kind of goofy, very, um, very 80s, right, or early 90s, I guess, by the creator of Ninja Scroll. So that gives you an idea if you've seen Ninja Scroll. And but it has this kind of gothic element to it. It's basically demons take over Shinjuku, and like take over, like they live there, and they've killed off or eaten most of the humans there, and it has that just really spooky vibe. It has that it's very gothic, dark vibe, which is pretty cool. I've not seen Hellgirl, so I cannot comment on that one, but I've heard. Um, Ghost Hound certainly has creepy moments in it, and Ghost Hound has the advantage of being um, a longer form story, so it can kind of lull you into a sense of okay, we're just exploring this thing, and then we take a hard left turn into some really creepy idea. Um, so yeah, you have that. Oh, Ghost Hound reminded me of something else, but definitely Ghost Hound. Um, what else do you guys have? Because those are what left to my mind. Let me real quick pull up. Oops. Because, like, Akira, for example, can be scary, but it's not really Halloween scary, right? Just scrolling through the list here to see if I can remember if there's anything on here that I would really throw out, because those were on the top of my list. There is an episode of Gun Parade March, oddly, that is very Halloween, in a sense of just being dark and spooky and kind of tragic in that way of good horror can be. But for example, Grave of the Fireflies is sad, but it's not really Halloween. It's scary in a way, but Jinro, freaky in some ways, but not really Halloween freaky. There are also episodes of Kino's Journey, the original Kino's Journey, that I would nominate for this because there are twists that has that Twilight Zone aspect to it that I thought was really cool. King of Thorn, I've not seen King of Thorn, so I can't can't give you some honest recommendations there. And obviously Little Witch Academia, witches, but not scary. Although if you're looking for more of that light, fun stuff, which we might get back to, will be some fun stuff kind of themed around these things. Themed around these elements. Other like really horror, and there's not much horror in anime, right? Anime that has not really taken over in anime, and I'm not quite sure why. Horror is certainly a pretty well established genre, so you'd think there'd certainly be fans, but I think part of the problem is that when you're making like a TV series, you want to cast that net as wide as possible. You generally don't make TV anime for a niche audience. You make it for a broad audience. And horror just does not have a really... and when I say horror, I mean like real horror. That does not have a really huge audience. And when I say real horror, I mean something that is, disturbing and thought-provoking and challenging in that way that good horror can be. Ghost Town is definitely up there. Perfect Blue, yeah, Perfect Blue. I would totally throw on the pile. That is really freaky. Oh, there's one. Here's a really good one actually. Dream Hunter Rem, which is sadly unknown these days, but I try to champion here on this channel because it's about an unidentifiably young girl who dives into people's dreams and fights the demons therein. It started as a hentai and then got rescued, if you will, by its creators and turned into a five episode OVA. It's just non-H and but definitely has that horror vibe where it's vampires and people getting shot and things like that and that kind of fun stuff. But Dream Hunter Rem is a fun one. I show that to folks a fair bit. So yeah, those are the really freaky. Paprika you might put in there. I mean, Paprika is a more upbeat anime film, but it's definitely creepy and weird. Definitely a film that is unsettling. In the way of good horror. Let's see. Gundam. What else have we got on here? What else would be like really... Argent to Soma actually would not be a bad choice. I've only watched the first episode. Would Count of Monte Cristo fit? Gankutsuo? Vampire Hunter D? Yeah. Vampire Hunter D is totally one. That is That is actually like probably the best recommendation, JJ. Because it's vampires, it's creepy gothic horror. Yeah, that's it. Helsing too, obviously, right? That would fit. Um, Malice Doll, I don't know. Malice Doll, like you say, it's you could make it work, but again, it's a little more creepy and weird than it is, horror. There are no scares in it per se, no like jump scares. Not that you need jump scares for horror, but you know what I mean. There's not that creeping sense of dread that is kind of foregrounded in Malice Doll. There's weird stuff going on behind the scenes. There's this kind of question of what's actually going on, but not quite like horror. I would say. But yeah, I could certainly, if someone argued, I could see someone arguing Malice Doll, and I would agree with that. How does Gosick go? Does Gosick get horror at all? I don't know. I saw the first episode and liked it well enough, but never got back to it. And the stuff like Higurashi, which is definitely horror, Higurashi would fit, but it's so long form, right? And there's so much to get into. Kind of hard to recommend something that is this big franchise, so to speak. But I could see folks arguing that. Is anything else? Love Goes not really horror. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's just sounded. It sounded like it had sort of gothic visual elements, but not really the tone. Very intentionally. Cool. So let's ask this question: what are some anime series that use the trappings of horror and of scary stuff, vampires, zombies, and so forth, but are not scary at all, right? They're still just kind of fun and light takes on that. So Interviews with Monster Girls, good example where you have, a vampire, which is a cute teenage girl who's kind of an airhead. Karin-chan, folks mentioned from before. Is this a zombie? Kore wa zombie desu ka? All things that... Oh, actually, I'm going to switch right back around real quick. Something that I definitely would throw in there for like actual horror anime, High School of the Dead. Acknowledging the fact that there is some really out of place ecchi material in there. That is outright horror. And that is one of the best pieces of horror I've seen. Paranoid Agent, I would count. It is creepy and weird and scary, at times, right? But kind of the overall tone of that is more horror. Zombieland Saga, totally, yeah, fun light take on that Rosario vampire, absolutely. I think of other shows that kind of play around with that. Oddly, Watamode comes to mind, even though there's no like serious stuff. Or that there's no like horror tropes in it, but it is kind of a weird one. Yeah, High School of the Dead is just zombie outbreak occurs in Japan, and high schoolers have to break out and break out of their school and survive. And it is that first episode is the most perfect zombie survival horror story I've ever seen. It is just interspersed with weird penny shots and such, which just don't fit. And I remember when that came out and folks were like, oh, the manga's way worse. And I went back and I read the manga, and the manga is not worse. The anime was frankly more ecchi than the manga was. And the manga had ecchi too, but yeah, like they got zombies. What else kind of a fun... ridiculous take. There was an anime from I think a couple of seasons ago about a girl who stops in to a detective agency, and it is a detective agency all with like hot teenage boys, in it as it's anime. But like one's a werewolf, one's a vampire, one's a zombie, but like a Chinese zombie, the floating Chinese zombie. And that was kind of fun. Let's see here. That's an interesting point, Game Escape. Bleach definitely does have a horror vibe and an occult vibe. That's totally true. It'd be interesting to kind of go through Bleach and pull out some of those things. See if you could kind of extract just the gothic scenes and the gothic elements from Bleach. That is weird. Memories, you can certainly do. I mean, certainly. Excuse me, Magnetic Rose from Memories. That would be a great Halloween theme. Persona, sure. Persona games. Yep. Yeah, it's funny. It seems like there are as many light, upbeat takes on horror as there are like real horror stories. Not quite as many, but folks seem to enjoy that and play around with that a little bit more. Black Butler, right? Not really horror, but playing around with the tropes. My favorite non-anime horror Halloween films? Well, good question. Good question for the group as well. What are your favorite Halloween horror movies and such? My favorite of all time is still unquestionably the original Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, because it manages to be actually scary with a minimal budget, with very simple techniques, and it tells a story that became very cliche. When you go back and look at what movies were like back then, it felt very real and personal. It felt like actual teenagers, mucking around. But we just haven't, and it's hard to see that pattern fresh. But that just yeah. In terms of other good horror movies, both versions of The Thing, I really, really like. I have problems with John Carpenter's version of The Thing because everybody in it acts like a character from a bad horror movie. As in, the characters do. As soon as something freaky shows up, they all just go completely to pieces. Nobody trusts anybody, and it just all falls apart. And so the characters, it's been a while since I saw it, but there's not too much variation in the characters' personalities once the monster shows up, despite the large cast. So that one, as technically excellent as that film is, and as much as an elevation it is of its original source material, I found the original movie fascinating because the scientists set up this faction separate from the main character, saying, yes, this creature is dangerous, but it needs to be captured and studied. And we know that is problematic, but as scientists, this is what we do. And you can't just kill it because it's dangerous. We have to know what it is. And I found that a much more interesting take on the source material. Again, just kind of a take. Nosferatu, that is a movie that I found legitimately creepy the first time I watched it. I gotta admit, I've watched it a few times since, and after going through it a few times, it's kind of lost a lot of that shock. Partly because just seeing what they did in a silent film of that era was just amazing. But that is, it is a classic, right? It is foundational. The original Dracula, I like a lot. The original Dracula, but by the original Dracula, I mean like the Bela Lugosi, Dracula. There are definitely sequences in that which are slowly paced and which feel a little, I don't know, they drag somewhat. And I love carefully paced old black and white movies. Like I have no problem with that kind of pacing, but the old Dracula does have that problem. That said, there are these occasional moments where, when Renfield comes off the ship in England and he just starts laughing maniacally because they made it to England. Like they made it and now his master is free. It's a horrifying moment because Renfield is celebratory and there is no humanity in him whatsoever. He is completely mad. And it's just wonderful seeing that in that actor. And then watching Lugosi walk through the streets of England in total control of himself and knowing nothing can stop him. It's just an amazing, amazing moment. Faust, yes. Faust is a very impressive movie. It was the inspiration for the Nannenball Mountain sequence in Fantasia. That was really cool. Akko, you are not banned. Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. That is a fun ride. That is a fun movie because it knew how to handle. Because it was a fresh take on the source material, it wasn't just the straight sort of horror vibe, gothic horror vibe of the original storyline. Although I do love. Okay, so here's another thing. One of my other favorites, probably one of my top 5 favorite horror movies of all time, is the Disney Legend of Sleepy Hollow short, because there is, if you love Disney animation, it is all throughout that. That is just high quality work all throughout that short. And that final sequence is some of the most scary, horrific, shocking imagery that I think Disney has ever animated. They go full bore on the intensity of that animation. And it's not horror in the sense of, dripping blood or anything, but in the sense of just building up to this intense, overpowering sequence of these things happening to Ichabod Crane. It's a really, really impressive piece of work. I grew up watching that. Like every Halloween, I'd pull that out and watch it on VHS because I'm old. So yeah, that's really cool. And again, the Johnny Depp version just treads that great line between saying, hey, this is, there's horror here, but we can also have fun with it. We can do comedy. It works really, 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 really well. Other horror movies. So here's a weird little one that I happen to like a lot. What is the name of that? Not that one. Not that one. The Comedy of Terrors. Comedy of Terrors is a movie. It's from 1963, starring Vincent Price, Peter Lorre, Boris Karloff, and Basil Rathbone. All in one movie together. And it is a horror comedy. So it has kind of the plot line of a horror movie, but, everyone is a bumbling idiot, more or less. Which was really fun. Yeah, the Pumpkin on Fire thrown across the bridge was intense sequences. But also when Ichabod is chasing, or is being chased and ends up on the horse and looks down the neck of the Headless Horseman and just reacts in, mind-shattering terror to what he sees, and we never see it. That's just a brilliant little bit of animation. Comedy of Terrors is one of those things where it is 4 horror actors all just having a great fun being themselves, in the trappings of one of these horror movies, but also just playing off those tropes, which is great fun. So there's that. So let's go back to early stuff. So kind of going forward, I think definitely Nosferatu is the earliest one that I would unequivocally recommend. Phantom of the Opera didn't do too much for me, to be honest. Dracula. Original Frankenstein. I'm always impressed going back to the original Frankenstein because there is actually absolutely some... and again, you have to imagine that you're an audience at the time watching it to appreciate the quality of the special effects, because it hasn't aged very well in terms of some of the special effects, but for the time they were very impressive, and they still they hold up in the sense that nothing feels cheap, nothing feels badly made. It's just you're like, oh, that's a set. That's clearly a set, right? We know enough of cinema now to recognize it as a set, but it still looks like what it's supposed to look like. It's like watching a version of Hamlet, where you can tell, okay, that's not a real cemetery, but it looks like a cemetery. And also, the original Frankenstein is quite tightly plotted. A lot of those old movies, like I said about the original Dracula, can kind of drag at times. But Frankenstein moves. Like, there's always something going on in that movie, which was really impressive to me. I just really like that one. Faust, again, silent movie, but yeah, Faust is cool. Faust is a silent movie, so there are a lot of long, drawn-out sequences, but oh man, the imagery in that, brilliant. Other black and white ones, those are the ones that leap out. Moving into like the 50s and the 60s, 70s, again, Halloween. I'm going to say it is worth checking out the original Nightmare on Elm Street. It is very much a movie of its time. But like other things, it has a tone and a mood to it that feels very intentional, right? Like they knew what they were making with that movie, and it feels crafted in a way that a lot of other horror movies don't, where there's just kind of formulas being thrown together. And let's not beat around the bush. Nightmare on Elm Street is not Citizen Kane, but it was a twist. It was a unique take on it, and finding out what actually was the deal with Freddy Krueger is a neat moment in that film. It is a bit of a shock to realize how far they went with that concept. That's pretty cool. Omen. I've actually never seen the Omen all the way through. I've always seen like pieces of it on like TV. Original Ghostbusters. Yes, original Ghostbusters is great. Unfortunately, original Ghostbusters has this issue that it's been so heavily quoted and so heavily referenced that it's again kind of hard to go back into that and imagine being an audience member who only knows those actors from Saturday Night Live. That was basically, an SNL movie, right, back then. And people were like, okay, it's going to be this weird, comedy horror thing, sure. And you go in and you're like, oh, this is like well made. And it's structured and it has like really, really good, that is a well made movie. It is a classic. Although I have issues with it. I will admit. I have issues with wow, brain dead. Bill Murray's character. Bill Murray's character has not aged well. Bill Murray's character is he's kind of a sexual predator in that movie, and it's really creepy watching it now. Unfortunately, like the character just feels, it really steps over lines a lot in that movie. So that is unfortunate for going back to that. Let's see here. What else? 70s, 80s, 90s. I'll admit I've not kept up with a lot of the horror movies of the past couple of decades. Partly because when they were coming out, I was starting to go back to the old stuff and getting kind of my feet under me horror-wise for that genre. So I didn't get a chance to watch, I Know What You Did Last Summer or those things. So nothing against them. I just haven't gotten a chance to watch, Paranormal Activity, that kind of stuff, which a lot of people seem to like and just, cool. I'm definitely more into the psychological horror stuff, though. The really Not necessarily psychological horror in the sense of somebody who's not sure what's going on, but in the sense of something that's it's more where you're trying to deal with something that is hard to understand, and that is kind of symbolic and that is interesting to deal with. Yeah. Those kinds of things are really interesting to me. Um, but yeah. Another good one, which I actually ended up watching in theaters not long ago, is um, oh, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's the one. Both of them, but the original like '50s version and the one from the '70s, and they both have their attraction. Although I think the one from the '70s does kind of it is more gripping. Um, it's kind of more carefully constructed than the original '50s version is, but both of them are really interesting, really cool. That was a lot of fun. I'll admit I do not find Night of the Living Dead scary. I have very little. Um, um, so Night of the Living Dead just had no effect on me for some reason. It just it. I watched it a couple of times now, and it just it. That's a null op, right? But yeah, for some reason. And a lot of folks like that. A lot of folks find that very scary. But for me, I was like, eh. One of the sequels, though, I really liked. I think it was the third Living Dead movie, where it's sort of this post-apocalyptic thing where the zombies have more or less taken over, and humanity's kind of now there's just these little pockets living in little areas of the world. That was a really neat concept, and it explores the questions of what zombie apocalypse means and how we would deal with that. And again, that's the kind of thing I like, where it is no longer simply, oh my gosh, this scary thing's running at me, I gotta run away. This is a known threat. How do we deal with it? And how do we deal with it long term? That was a really fascinating approach to it. Um, that was really cool. Was it, was that Day of the Dead? Maybe Day of the Living Dead or something like that? That was a cool one. Um, but yeah, yeah, that was an impressive film. They're out there. They're definitely out there. But I do want to talk about anime history. I have a few anime that came out in in the past, and I thought it would be fun to dig into. So just give me a moment to spin this up. And I'm going to do that. And there we are. Move over here. If you guys have any suggestions for how to better like format the anime history segment, I'd love to hear it because I haven't really figured out a fun take on that where I could put backgrounds or whatever. But whatever. Hello, welcome to This Week in Anime History, where I'm looking at some of the major anime released this week in history, thus the name. And first off, we're going to look at The Legend of the White Serpent, known by many other titles, Tales of the White Snake, lots of other things, released in 1958, on October 22nd, 1958, as it happens. And this was when it premiered back in Japan, over in Japan. Remarkable because it was the first full-color animated film ever made in Japan. And that might not seem so remarkable today unless you look at the date and realize this was 13 years after the end of World War II. So Japan was still climbing its way out of the economic devastation of that war. And so the fact that they were able to produce, or a studio was able to produce, a full-color feature-length animated film was a remarkable feat and was quite celebrated in Japan at the time. It was an adaptation of a classic fairy tale of East Asia, actually a Chinese one, and indeed it was drawn to look more like a Japanese woodblock print or Chinese woodblock print than, say, a Disney or a Fleischer cartoon of the early to mid 20th century. And it was really interesting. If you get a chance to watch it, you will find something that is pretty in a kind of fundamental sense, in a sense of attention paid to lines and to movement and to the art of the film. It is definitely mimicking Disney style animated films. There are cute, cuddly animal companions. There are musical sequences, all of that. But it is definitely a work of art, right? It is a piece of cinema put together, which is really cool. Also, this week in anime history was the release of Tetsujin 28 Go in October 20th of 1963. And this was the first mecha series ever made. Came out not too long, only a few months after the release of Astro Boy, which, depending on who you ask, was the first anime ever. And Gigantor was remarkable for a couple of reasons. One is that the mecha Gigantor in the series is, in canon, in the story of that series, a war machine built to fight the Allies, who just was not completed in time before the end of the war. It was mothballed and then brought back after the war had ended to be controlled by a preteen boy, because that's what you do with a massive military weapon. And it's very much it's an anime for kids from the 60s. Not a lot of logic applies to Gigantor, but it did popularize the trope of the giant robot, and helped to make the giant robot, make robots in general, feel more heroic to the Japanese populace, and helped to create this image of the robot as helper to humanity, as opposed to like the Terminator from in the West. So definitely a momentous anime at the time, and an anime that was kind of dealing with questions about Japanese culture. The fact that a lot of technology from World War II was being used in peacetime, and questioning the fact of this use of military hardware, or at least the results of military hardware in peacetime. Interesting series and kind of prescient in that ways. Not much of it shows up in the anime series. I'll be honest. Much of the anime series is just evil penguin robots attacking from the Antarctic. Crush them, Gigantor. That kind of stuff. But really fun for all that. It's actually streaming on Amazon at the moment, if you're interested. But yeah, that is the major anime news stories of the week in terms of anime history. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. What was the first ecchi/hentai anime? That would be Cream Lemon from the 80s. Which was a series of OVAs in which various girls of not carefully identified ages got into various naughty situations. They were created to just make them, young. Schoolgirls. And because it was an OVA, you could show anything. And so that's where all that started, actually. Cream Lemon. And indeed, one of the segments for Cream Lemon kind of got out of hand, kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger, and they ended up turning into a movie, and that was Project A-ko. So if you've ever seen Project A-ko, that was originally going to be a hentai short. And if you've seen Project A-ko and you think about it, you'll know why. You'll recognize the traces that are still in there. But yeah. And Cream Lemon was, so it's a little later on at night, so I can talk about this now. Cream Lemon was referencing, Project A-ko was originally why do you think Biko is so obsessed with Seiko? What do you think she wants to do with Seiko? Why is Biko taking a bath right in the middle of that movie for no real reason? Yeah. That was the original thing. In fact, if you get a chance to ever find Cream Lemon, you'll find a segment by essentially the same staff. And it's basically a prototypical version of Project A-ko. So they did this, it's actually like this sort of post-apocalyptic action storyline involving girls who are very interested in each other. And it's very, very goofy comedy, sci-fi action stuff with these sort of Yuri scenes in it. And so they did that, and it came out and it was fine. And they were going to do something else kind of similar to it, and off it goes. And then off it turned into Project Echo. But yeah, and it's really only in the first movie. After the first movie, they really avoid those things. But when you're watching the movie and you know that, you're like, that's where that came from. But yeah, anime's weird. But yeah, cream lemon is actually a reference to lemon. So the term lemon was used back in the day for H material, for adult material in Japan. They were all called lemons. And that was back in, actually, that was also in fandom, like genre fandom, back in like the 80s and the 90s. Lemon was the term for adult content in fandom. So if you wrote a adult fan fiction, for example, they'd be called lemons, oddly enough. And so occasionally you come across references to, Star Trek Lemon. It's like, what is that? Oh, it's one of those stories about Star Trek. Yeah, I love Echo. Echo is just a really, really fun franchise. One of these days, I'd love to do like an anime movie night where I just show like all the Echo films. There are like 5 of them, so that'd be a long night. But just do an Echo marathon. It'd be a lot of fun. So for those who don't know, Project Echo is this sci-fi comedy, action comedy from the 80s that essentially, after they pivoted away from the H material, became this showcase for animation talents. So a lot of animators came on board to the Project Echo movies and just really showcased some amazing animation talent in those. So if you love, Itano circuses and crazy fight sequences, stuff like that, that's all Project Echo. Yeah, and I believe lemon was originally specifically a term for H material of the more young variety in Japan. Not outside of Japan, like that didn't really cross over. But I think that's kind of where it came from originally. So yeah, so they kind of trended younger. Yeah, Project Echo is huge fun. If you at all like that stuff, it's really cool. Oh, nice. Yeah. VHS made from laser discs. That's pretty nuts. It's really nice back when was Discotech that released like all the Project Echo movies on DVD. Like here it is, all of them. Boom, done. Like box set. Like thank you. It's good to finally just have all of them because collecting those before that was just incredibly hard. Yeah. And then you get other weird stuff. So again, we're off. We're past the watershed, so I can talk. There is a fan-made Evangelion animated adult film where fans got together in like the late '90s and animated a like 5-10 minute short film of the characters from Evangelion getting it on. And you can find that if you dig hard enough online. It's really weird to see. It's got sound effects and voice acting and so forth. Obviously, the original voice actors are not involved. But it's really, it's an experience because like this was not digital. Like they had to actually like hand draw and color and really literally animate this thing as fans. It is crazy. It was absolutely crazy. Yeah, it's all over LimeWire back in the day. Uh, yeah, it is. It is. It's weird, and like it's from what I recall of it, and again I watched it I don't know how many years ago. Like the artwork is not far off. It's definitely fan work, but it's not like what am I watching? It's like yeah, that would pass as a shot from Eva by maybe a more junior animator, but yeah, it would fit. Some of the things don't fit very well in it, but yeah, it's a trip. And just imagine going to all that work to do that, man. kind of crazy. And I don't know that that's happened with anything else. Obviously, there have been fan adult parodies of things, but it's usually just a shot here and there. It's like a Flash game or whatever. Oh yeah, the recent Warhammer short. Yeah, there's a special effects guy. Well, not a special effects guy. There's a guy who basically just started using all the special effects technologies to make his own Warhammer short films. And they're just unbelievable. It's all CGI, and he's just figuring it all out on his own. He might be like in the special effects industry. I'm not sure, but it's stunning stuff. Really, really cool. So it is 10:16. We've done the news. We've done our anime history. We've chatted about stuff. Is there anything else you guys want to cover? We've talked about some anime horror themed stuff. Anything else you want to dig into? Let me know. I do not know about the origins of Megazone 23. I'll admit I have not seen Megazone 23. I think I have it. I bought it, but I've not gotten a chance to sit down and watch Megazone 23, which I want to do. Lots of weird stuff from... I shouldn't just say weird, but lots of stuff from that era that I want to get to one of these days and just haven't quite. Ixur 1, similar. But yeah, there's very little I know about Megazone 23, to be honest. Yeah, I do not know. And that's one of the hard things is a lot of those stuff like were based on something. There's a lot of like really cool stuff out there. One moment. There we go. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that like was based on a very popular manga or some series of light novels, and we just don't know about it because we never heard about those original works over here. So it's really really tough to find those things much of the time. It's like, oh yeah, there's all this context that you would like to know. Who knows? Yeah, oh yeah. In the 80s, you got what you could. Supposed to be a TV show. And then it got compiled into a movie. That kind of thing. Wouldn't surprise me. Kind of like Robotech 2. Yeah, the Robotech movie thing, which was compiled from the scraps of the first few episodes of Robotech 2, the TV series. That so here's a story. After the success of Robotech, Harmony Gold went back to Studio Pierrot in Japan and said, "Can we contract out with you and to have you animate a sequel to Robotech, where we will, we'll send you scripts and you storyboard it and do all of the anime stuff. Clash of the Bionoids, thank you, that's it. And we're gonna do like a 50 episode, Robotech sequel series." And the Studio Pierrot agreed, and the staff was like, "Yes, I'm gonna do this thing." And the staff was also very, very concerned because, as they put it, if anyone in Japan knew that the Americans were making their own sequel to Macross, there would be blood on the streets. So they kept it this really, really, really tight secret in Japan. And they started producing episodes of a sequel to Robotech, with some new characters and some old characters returning. And very early on, the returning characters disappeared. They were just not in any of the storylines. It was all the new characters, which was not what Harmony Gold wanted. And they went back and they kind of argued about it, and it didn't stop. And so eventually Harmony Gold just put a stop to it and said, "Nope, we don't want any more of this, never mind." And it was Carl Machek's suspicion that the anime studio realized, hey, if we end up making an anime series that is, 45 episodes of completely original material, we can sell that in Japan, and no one will know it is a remake of, not a remake of, but like a sequel to Macross, because there'll be no Macross material in it, right? Again, no way of proving that, no way of knowing that. And Maycheck said that is my suspicion. I have no evidence of this. But yeah, that is a thing that could have happened and never did. And so they edited what they had in the Clash of the Bionoids, which is again hampered by the fact that it was just they didn't have a lot of material to work with there. So they didn't even have a full story to adapt into a movie. But yeah, that was the thing that happened. Pretty crazy. Alrighty, I think everyone, that will do it for tonight. Let me check my schedule, because I'll be at AUSA next weekend. And yeah, I will be back here. I should be back here in time for the live stream. So we will be doing, wow, these parts of the Macross movie, that's crazy. So yeah, we'll be back next week. Every so often, I'll get like somebody at the con will ask to, sit down and chat for a while, and that'll delay me a little bit. But like my last thing like ends at, I don't know, like 3 p.m., 4 p.m. So I should be able to make it back here in time with no problem. And we will do this again next Friday, the day after Halloween. Is that not correct? Yeah, exciting. So hope to see you all there. Thank you all as always. This has been a great, great time. And yeah, that'll do it for this week. Thank you all. Have a great week. Until next time, watch more anime.